Hey everyone, Nick Engvall here. Before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you about some of the people that make the sneaker history community and this podcast possible. It's more important than ever to think about who you give your money to when you're buying clothing to go with your kicks. Our friends at Guilty Goods started their brand with a goal of giving back, especially to the communities that make sneaker culture possible. With every purchase from Guilty Goods, at least 10% of the proceeds are donated to organizations like Big Brothers and Big Sisters, the Susan G. Komen Foundation, the Movement for Black Lives, and many more. You can save 30% on your order by using the code HISTORY at guiltygoods.us. Again, that's history at guiltygoods.us for 30% off, and you can feel good about your purchase knowing you're supporting a meaningful cause. Sneakers are all about presentation, and if you're like me, displaying your kicks at home or in the office is just as important as when they're on your feet. Sneaker Throne makes sneaker display cases featuring customizable LED lights, drop-side cases to showcase the entire side of the shoe, not just the heel or the toe, the whole shoe. They've also got display cases for trading card collectors and hat collectors. To me, it's the perfect way to display your collection. You can save at least 10% on your Sneaker Throne order by using the code HISTORY at sneakerthrone.com. That's history at sneakerthrone.com. If you're a Patreon supporter or a member of our Discord community, you already know about Kicks with V hot sauce and his small batch, locally sourced hot sauce. V has been one of the biggest supporters of sneaker history and the podcast since the early days. He's currently the defending champion in our community trivia nights competition. Kicks with V hot sauce has been a huge hit with the community. You can save 10% on your order by using the code SneakerHistory10 at kickswithvhots.com. That's SneakerHistory10 at kickswithvhots.com. Now, you're probably here because you like sneakers, and if you join the Discord, you know our community is about so much more than that. Whether it's the marathon-like community calls, trivia night debates, the in-person meetups, or just sharing our favorite experiences, we found that although we have such different backgrounds, we all have some unexpected shared passions. Not only does the entire community look out for each other when it comes to releases, we're like a support group for life in general. You can join the Discord community for free by heading to the show notes of this episode. After you're done listening to this episode, tell someone you like their kicks today. You never know how far a simple compliment can take you, and we all know how good it feels to have someone show their appreciation. Now let's get into today's episode.
Jordan trying to shake off Starks. Oh, what a move!
James with no regard for human life.
Final seconds. Bryant for the win. Iverson against Gill. The crowd on its feet. Allen for the win.
Welcome to the Sneaker History Podcast.
How's everybody doing? Welcome to another episode of the Sneaker History Podcast. I'm Robbie, and I'm here with another great interview episode with my guy, Marco Negrete. How you doing, boss?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for having me.
I've been so excited to have you on for a minute. I'm very happy it's actually linked up and lined up in our lives. So this is going to be a lot of fun. You have been all over the sneaker spectrum, it feels like. You're one of the OGs who have like really seen the inception of like the digital world in sneakers. So this is going to be a really interesting conversation, get some insight about you, what you've done, and kind of what you're up to now. So let's just get right into it. So who's Marco?
Yo, that's me, Marco-Henry Negrete. I have two names. I have to always throw that out there because people will get confused. For those of them who may be viewing who know me as Henry. But yeah, man, I am born and raised Fillmore, California, about an hour outside of LA. Went to school in the Bay, studied PR, and grew up loving sneakers, sports, entertainment, just pop culture as a whole. Always wanted to work in that. I went to study at San Jose State University. After that, I worked in tech for a little bit, and then I did that for a couple of years. And I decided, man, it's time for me to figure this thing out, and that's when I moved to New York and kind of like my sneaker career started. That was about almost 6 years ago now. That was summer 2015.
Doesn't everybody have a moment where they're like, I'm tired of being on the sideline, like listening to the conversation or reading the conversation, and you want to be in the conversation with shoes? It's a
yeah. I mean, early, during the intro, you described me as an OG, which was kind, but for me, I see like the same thing. I saw the OGs from the era before me doing all those things, and I would be reading their work while I was at work and like my tech job or my office job or whatever. And I'm like, yo, I want to do that. And then to your point, there comes a point where you have to say like all those people had to take risk to get to that point, right? It's an industry that everybody wants to work in. There's not a ton of jobs. Thankfully, it's growing. There's more jobs now, but at the time, it was really hard, man. Like to get your foot into the door, you had to be a designer or a writer. or some sort of creator at that point. So I definitely know that feeling. That feeling was kind of itching me for years, and then finally, at some point you got to do it.
You got to give yourself a little more credit, because I did the numbers in my brain a couple days ago. Like, I've now been in it over 20 years in terms of just like being a dedicated fan to sneakers.
Yeah.
So 20 years of experience in something. You're an OG now. It doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things where I don't realize we're just getting older, right? There's like some kids now who love shoes who are like 20. Like, oh, well, they probably look at me as an old dude in the game now. So I see what you're saying.
It's like, man, that Jordan 17 release feels like it was yesterday, but that was 20-something years ago. That's not
Dude,
yesterday.
It is weird thinking about like my favorite era of shoes. Like, I think like 06, 07, 08. It was a very pivotal moment for sneakers and for myself. Coming of age, like that's around the time I went to college, and I think about those releases and those moments like they were 5 years ago, and it's like, oh, whoa, those things were a long time ago.
Creeping up a little bit.
Yeah,
that's one thing we've been able to connect on just in that time period. We both love Kobe. We both love Kobe's shoes, and we'll see each other wearing Kobe's and be like, yeah, I know you're a big fan of hooping in them. So that's like prime Kobe years. 06 to 2010 is really, from a shoe perspective, Kobe's golden year with Nike.
Man, I was late to the Kobe Nike run because when I was growing up, I loved playing the retros. It was just that feeling of playing in something that felt like you wanted to feel like the people you grew up watching, right? You grew up in the 90s. You wanted those 90s looking sneakers, and it took me a while to really get to like start appreciating innovation in shoes. I think it was the 08 Olympics when the Hyperdunk debuted and Kobe and everybody were wearing them in Beijing. And you're like, oh, that performance shoe looks kind of cool. And if all the best players in the world are wearing it, it must be cool. So I went and grabbed that pair. And it changed everything. I was like, I will never go back to hooping in 20-year-old shoes again, technology-wise. I still like to hoop in like a Jordan 10 or a 7, but for the most part, it's like, yeah. And then once I got to Kobe's and I started trusting the low tops, because I don't know if you remember, but like playing basketball in the 90s and the 2000s, for some reason there was this like national fear of ankle injuries. Like we had the big ASICS ankle braces in high school. Our coach made everybody wear them. They had like 4 straps on them. I wore them for football and basketball. And then so the idea of low top sneakers was like, no way, right? Like our ankles are ankles. And I realized like, I've never had an ankle injury, knock on wood. And if Kobe's wearing them, then he's playing at a much higher level than me. So first shoe that I got and I really like kind of fell in love with from a Kobe POV was the Kobe 6, because it's just a sick design.
Oh yeah.
I hate to jump out of the frame real quick, but
good.
I have them on display here in my living room, so I might as well grab them. This shoe, I really wanted the Grinch back then, and like it is today, impossible to get. I remember getting a pair of these on eBay used, like maybe when I was like 19 or 20. I was already like not playing, in high school anymore, but I was still hooping a lot. And once I put them on, I was like, oh, I'm probably never going to go back, go away from Kobe's ever again.
So I'm going to go on a limb here, because you brought up the 08 Hyperdunk. I have a pair of those 08 retros, and even in 2021, it's a very light, durable hoop shoe. You have the lightness of the Kobe, lightness of the Hyperdunk. You can compare that to a Jordan 7 or 10 night and day. We're going to get off this topic, but before we do, I have to know, because a lot of people go back and forth between like what's the best retro Jordan to play in. I hear the 13, the 10, the 7, the 9. What's your favorite retro to play in?
I haven't played in every single one, but I've played in a lot.
Which ones you played in?
I used to like it was like this goal of mine as I was like coming up as a sneakerhead to at least play one run in every shoe that I had, right? So I played in a lot of shoes that I regret playing in, like an 8 or 9. But for me, the 10, particularly the Steel 10 from the late 2000s, like that shoe is so bouncy, so comfortable. That leather is so soft. Like I would still play in that shoe to this day. And in a Cardinal 7 from the same era, man, those things like the lining around the ankle, like, is just so freaking nice that both of those shoes, like, but it had to be those year, right? Because for the retros, they change things here and there. So 7 or a 10 for me, man, to this day. If it was from that era, I'll still play in it if I had to.
A nice buttery leather can have such great support. It's that fast lacing system with a 10 too. It really gives you a good lockdown for old tech.
It's just, man, it's just like I remember first playing in it, and I'm just like, this is so comfortable. It's a great outdoor shoe because by the time I had them, they were already kind of beat. So I would play in the playground with them, and I'm like, oh, you can't beat this shoe. Like, you're protected, and you just felt so bouncy. So impressive for a shoe that old, technology-wise, for it to be that good still.
Yeah, it didn't even have full length because full length Zoom didn't come out until the Jordan 12. So for the 10 to feel that good, like.
Yeah, I should have been prepared. I have
you're good, bro.
10 from 05, 06 around here, and it's just like the sole's off. It's like a display. It's like artwork now, but this is the same one that I was playing in all those years ago.
Mm-hmm. Now we could go pulling shoes all day. It's
I hear you. This thing
beautiful.
We'll never get to the topics if we start doing that.
Never. So I mean, you alluded to it by moving to New York. Let's just start with like the early part of your sneaker centric career. So New York would be complex for you. How did that help shape Marco in this field, in this space?
It was career defining, but before that, there was something that was even more important, right, to get my foot in the door, and that was thanks to Sneaker History's own Nick Engvall. I was living in San Francisco. I was working at Twitter headquarters at the time. I'd been working in tech for a couple of years. Just going to school in Silicon Valley is kind of the natural next step. You just move to San Francisco and you try to get a job in tech. And I was doing that, and one day, he had just moved to Finish Line. I had been following his work along with the other like complex sneakers OGs. Yeah. Nick, Brando, Russ, Joe, all those guys I've been following forever. And then one day he tweeted out, I still remember, I had the tweet, and I tweeted out like every year because it's such
You're good about keeping tweets like that. You always have
it's such
like
an important
memories.
part of my life. But he tweeted out, who wants to write about sneakers? And I was like, yo, here's my chance. So I had like my own WordPress that I'd been doing since college. And it wasn't like I wasn't like blogging every day, but every time something that came up that I was passionate about, I'd do a list like my favorite basketball shoes or etc. I sent him a couple links, and I had done a couple pieces that I was proud of. The writing wasn't very good, but like at least it was enough for him to say, hey, this guy knows his stuff. He's clearly already practicing and he has passion. And he followed me back, and then he DM'd me. He's like, yo, let me send you some samples. And mind you, I'd never professionally written in my life. So he sent them back, and I remember the first one being the Air Jordan 10 Venom Green, and I'm like in my room, and I'm treating this like it's an article for New York Times, right? I'm like editing everything, and I sent it, and it's like a 2 paragraphs, right? It's a blog, and he gives me a shot, man. And then I ended up doing that for about a year and a half while I was working at Twitter. I basically would work 9 to 5, 9 to 6. Back then it was more like 8 to 7, and then I'll get off of work, and then I would stay at Twitter for the free dinner, and I would just grab a booth and just knock out articles for the Finish Line blog. And I did that for again like about a year and a half, and it was just, that was really what pushed me over. And then Nick, I was like, yo, Nick, I think I want to do this, and he had always given me some good advice, him and Brando. And then I decided, like, shoot, I'm not really like super thrilled with like where my career is going here, and if I don't make the move now and I keep putting it off for another year, who knows if I'm ever going to get there. So I said, hey, if I want to work in this industry, and now I have about a year and a half experience, I got to go to where the employers are. And at that time, it was New York City. So I move out there, quit my job, and I move out there, and I reached out to a guy named John Marcello, who now heads up BR Kicks at Bleacher Report. And him and I were like internet friends, right? Like a lot of us are. Like you and I were internet friends before we met in Portland. And I said, hey, I've seen this job opening for a freelance writer at night, freelance news writer for Complex Sneakers. Like, do you think you could put in a good word for me? And he did that, and I'm thankful for that. And then, I became a freelance writer for Complex about a month after I landed in New York, and I was working the night shift Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. to 12 midnight every day, about 5 or 6 articles. But like that was back when news was every blog and outlet was really fighting for news hits. Now it's all social, right? Or mostly social video. But back then news mattered. So you had all the big dogs competing for that. So Complex had basically somebody on news at every waking hour of the day, weekends too. So I did that, and then, being a freelance writer isn't enough to survive in New York City or maybe in any city unless you're doing it at a really high level, which I wasn't at that point. I just had that one beat. And so I basically got another tech job in New York, and I started doing the same thing over again. The 9 to 5, 9 to 6 tech job, run to the train, run home, grab some food on the way home, and then log in at 7 p.m. and have a few pitches ready for my editor, Matt Welty, at the time. And then just hammer it out to midnight, and then repeat that for Monday through Friday. I did that for about 9 months, and then I got an opportunity to work full-time at Complex when John Marcello got promoted. Came in as the social editor for complex sneakers and complex style, and then that's when things really started rolling for me in a good way.
You dropped so many gems there, and why I love having people on the show is because you probably don't even realize how many gems you just dropped there. Here's some of the big takeaways from it for our listeners here.
Yes.
You're trying to get into this space. So, number one, even if it's not the most polished and professional blog, have something to show. Nobody ever is going to take you for work if you say, hey, I can do this. I know I can. Okay, show me. And you can't show anything.
Yep.
It's a pretty big problem. So have something to show. Be persistent, but not. So make friends is what I'm also trying to get to. So you made friends with John. You made friends with Nick. And those genuine relationships are what's going to help you get the job, not putting the job first and the end goal first. You got to treat people like people.
Yeah.
And then just working. So a lot of people will feel like I can do this next year. I'll do it the year after that. You said you couldn't have it go another year. And when that light goes off, you either got to move or don't move. So you made the choice to move. Other people need to not be afraid to just work that second job after your main job or do whatever you need to. So that determination you show through that story, that's a big takeaway for some of our listeners who might be trying to get into sneakers, or let's say you like just like fashion in general, right? Or if you like comic books, or if you like cards, whatever niche market you want to be in, you got to work.
Yeah, man, it's tough too. And, lucky I was in a position to do that, right? I could just pick up and leave like that. I know that's not
tough.
A luxury that everybody has at that point. I was young, I was single, packed my bags, and my parents gave me the support that I needed and encouraged me to do that. I had some friends in New York that allowed me to crash with them when I got there, because there's no way I could have got an apartment there, because it was, And the other thing I would say, though, is to your first point is again, I learned the hard way, and I think a lot of us have too, is like passion just isn't enough when it comes to jobs. So like in college, when I graduated college, I was applying for all these like Nike jobs and jobs in media that I thought I was qualified for based off of the fact that I had a degree and I love sneakers. And then you realize like that's not enough, right? Like just being passionate about something is never going to be enough to make a career out of it. You got to figure out a skill set that's going to apply. So after years and years of just getting no replies back and being so frustrated, like why aren't they calling me back? Look at me, I love sneakers. It's like you can't display all that in a resume. So even if the work is not super polished or even if nobody's reading it, just getting those reps in. I think for me, that's like my number one advice to anybody: start getting the reps in now. And don't wait for someone to validate you or to pay you for it. And then by the time when the opportunity comes, you'll be a little bit more ready.
Nobody told Kobe to shoot shots at 4 a.m. He did it on his own. So
you got to be ready, man.
What it comes down to. So that complex job then prepped you for, I mean, let's be real. Most people who are fans of shoes, like the dream is having a job with Jordan.
Yeah.
So you then were able to parlay that into moving out to Portland.
Yep.
What did you do with Jordan? And I mean, I was a huge fan of what you did there. Like the editorials is nuts. But let's hear a little bit about the next step of your journey.
Yeah, man. At Complex, so I did about a year of freelancing and another year in the office. And man, like that was like, it was like going to get your master's in culture and in media. Right, I got to work with some of the most talented people and learn from some of the most talented people. And then after about a year of that, I was like happy there. I was like, yo, this I'm living in New York City. I'm writing about sneakers.
Complex.
I was pumped. Like the type of people that I get to learn from every day, from Joe LaPuma to Julian Patterson to Russ Bankston. I was like, yo, I am like living the dream right now. So when the Jordan thing came up, it was kind of out of the blue. They were looking for somebody who had a PR and editorial and a media background to join their global PR team in Beaverton. And it just so happened that the agency at the time, Taylor Agency, or Taylor PR, we worked with them at Complex, and they reached out to John, who had just taken a role at Adidas, so he kind of ooped it up to me. And so the Complex thing has really served this all up, and they gave me their blessings. I told at the time Julian and Joe LaPuma, I told them, hey, I got this opportunity, and they were all about it, man. I mean, they were all supportive about it. They're like, hey, man, this is an opportunity you got to take, and we encourage you to do that. We support you through this. If you want to stay, that's great, but we support you. So that support was great too, because I had owed them a lot, right? They took a chance on me coming from the tech world, just this random dude who had been freelance blogging, and they gave me that role. So the fact that they supported me through that decision and encouraging me to take it was huge for me, because again, I did feel like I was indebted to them for the opportunity they had given me. And then when I get to Jordan, man, like you said earlier, like it's everyone's dream job. I'm everybody. Like that was me. I walked in like I remember being in New York taking the interview, and I was like pretty set that I wasn't going to move, because I wanted to live in New York my whole life. I'm finally there. I'd only been there for a couple of years, and I didn't want to move to Oregon. No offense. And then I get off the call, and I'm like, oh, I think this is happening. Like I just felt the energy. The role was too perfect, and I got to and my first role in Oregon. I booked that one-way flight. I'd never been to Portland in my life. Packed up my bags and headed out in about a month's notice. And I joined our global PR team, and it was just like, man, it just felt like the perfect role for me. They allowed me to do all of the writing. So on Nike News, like today, for example, the big fall preview just came out where they break down every shoe that's coming out. That was like the first task I was given, is like go storytell around what's coming out every season. And that gave me the opportunity to be in the rooms with our designers, with our collaborators, with our athletes, and really get the insights. And for me, I'm just thinking about it from someone who loves sneakers. Like, how do I make every shoe feel special to somebody that ultimately buys it? So I was doing that. I was in charge of a lot of our media and influencer relationships. And then we also did a lot of events, right? Previews and launch events, launching the game shoe, launching Russell Westbrook shoe, doing different pop-ups and activations at events like Paris Fashion Week and All-Star and Super Bowl. So it was like a mixture of all of the coolest things you could possibly imagine. And I say that with gratitude, not to brag. It really was a dream run for me there. I did that for about 2.5 years. And then about halfway through that, the Jordan blog, air.jordan.com, was a different team, but they were focused strictly on storytelling, deeper storytelling, cultural storytelling, where I was still focused a lot on business, PR, that type of stuff, which I loved. But I noticed that they were starting to ramp up there. So there was the person who was running that team. I just pitched her. I was like, hey, I got a couple ideas. Her name is Kieran. She works at Apple now on their editorial team, and she was great. And she was like, yeah, I love it. Let's do it. So they allowed me to write a story for them. And again, I'm just like working on a different team. Like, hey, this is also part of what I've done and what my background is. I would love to just help and that teamwork. And then welcome me into that team, which is like at a lot of big companies is not really, you don't really kind of like swim in other people's lanes, right? But the fact that they were so welcoming to me and encouraging me to help, and I'm just like, I want to tell the best stories possible for this brand or help. So they let me do that, and I did that for about a year, where I was doing both. Like I was doing all the PR and the comm stuff, which was awesome, and then I was also helping them with some of the writing, sourcing writers, sourcing photographers, stylists, things like that, and just kind of strategizing, all right, how to tell these stories a little bit deeper. And then after about a year of doing both, about 2.5 years in, the opportunity came up for me to go lead that editorial team, like basically lead all the creative on all the storytelling that we were doing. And I was just like, I had to choose really. And I was in such a blessed opportunity where my boss was like, hey, you would be really good for this role. You're already doing it, and we would love for you to stay on the team. So, whatever you think is best for you and your career, we'll support that. And again, like my boss at the time, Sarah Blazing, she allowed me to make that decision. And again, like that's you don't get that very often at big corporations. So I went ahead and took that shot and joined the editorial team. And then I just moved to full-time storytelling, interviews, and kind of just became like the editor-in-chief of that blog. Is the way that I approached it. How do we tell the best story for every shoe or for every event? And it's not always going to be me. In fact, most times it's not going to be me. But I might know a writer who can bring this to life in the way that's authentic. So I got to do that and work with some super talented people externally to bring them in and help them tell the stories for us. It was incredible.
You can always feel, especially at direct blogs, so direct communications from a brand, if the person running it or if the leadership is authentic with the storytelling, if they really care. Because you can find sometimes, I'm not going to name names, but just like there's wrong information across every brand sometimes. It's like, okay, did they really care was the attention to detail there. And I feel like the Air Jordan stuff was always very literally on point. So kudos to that. What's crazy is the next transition, because you have like the greatest, I guess, in theory, to externally every sneakerhead on earth, you have the coolest job on earth. So why then transition to your current role with Sole Savy? Why was that intriguing to you?
Well, I mean, for starters, I've known DP, the CEO and the co-founder of Sole Savy, and I've known Justin, his co-founder, for years. And from the Kickstills days to just like he became a friend over the last 5 years or so. So I always believed in what he was building, and then for me, I'd spent I was lucky enough to spend the last five or so years in the industry from the media standpoint and the brand standpoint. And as you know, things have changed a lot, man. The sneaker experience isn't the same as it used to be when we were growing up, or even five years ago for us, right? It's become increasingly harder to just enjoy shoes, right? Like it's almost like a challenge every day now to just enjoy the culture that our friends help build, right?
Yeah.
The people that we grew up with, the other collectors, the people that we don't know, people like us who are just very passionate about this. So when I saw that what they were building, I was keeping an eye on it and I was supporting it. And then, he gave me an incredible opportunity to not only come work for him, but to help build this company. And, my roots were in Silicon Valley. That's where I started my career. So I knew that at some point I wanted to like build my own thing and kind of take that entrepreneur step. I just didn't know when it was going to come. And like the Jordan thing, it just came way sooner than I expected. And it just, it worked out timing wise, right? Jordan Brand and Nike were going through a lot of changes in the last year, a lot of hard times. And a lot of my friends and managers and people that I really like learned a lot from there were no longer with the company or had moved on. So for me, I just started thinking about what's going to be next for me, and then DP did a really solid job at selling me on the future of this company, and I just decided that it was best, and he was going to let me build my team and really try to stick up for the sneaker community that's been lost in this explosion of this industry, right? It's all about resale and profits, and he said, hey, we're all about the people and the passion, and that's music to my ears. I took the job and haven't looked back since.
I'm going to keep saying beautiful because it really is like to have – ultimately you're betting on yourself, right? Because you have super sweet job at Jordan, but again, something is clicking in your brain like I'm experienced in this tech world. I know that I want to help nurture and grow something. I have a great thing here, but it could be great over here. So it's not always looking for greener pastures. It's betting on yourself. It's not always looking – what's the best opportunity, but where are you going to get the most out of it? So
yeah, I mean, for sure. I'm super confident in like the things that I've been able to learn over the years and the people that I've been able to learn from, and my vision for myself always extended beyond Beaverton, right? I was so lucky to be there, man. I wish I could have been there for a decade, but timing wise, this was the right move for me, and I'm excited about it.
That's great advice. Just being open to change. So let me throw this at you. What's a piece of advice from one of the people we'd consider an OG or anybody you've come across in your work life? What's a good piece of advice that has helped you get to where you are today?
Oh, man, that's a tough one.
Just one. Doesn't have to be the best, but just what's one of them?
I think one thing that I learned working for like a really big corporation from some of my friends who had been there for a long time is you just got to stay true to yourself and what brought you there. I'm not really good at like playing the politics of corporate America, and nor did I ever really want to do that. But there are some places where it's necessary, right, to advance. And I just looked at some of the people that I looked up to, and I watched the way they move, right? And if they were staying true to themselves, they were being kind to other people, and they were never doing anything that, like, I never wanted to advance at the expense of somebody else, right? And I think that's pretty common when you think about just the way the corporate structure works. So some of the people that I worked with, they kind of like, I learned from them, and like one of my good friends, Hunter Murriera, he's like a Nike SB legend. He worked at Nike for 20 years, and I worked with him at Jordan. And I saw how he was, man. He just came to work every day, super passionate, really great at his job, but never let he just always treated people with kindness, right? And never let the politics and of work get in the way of what this is all about, man. Like, and that was our goals and trying to serve our consumer base and our community. And again, like, I don't know, it's not the most like profound advice, but I think it's just seeing the way people treat people, right? Like, there's a lot of benefits.
Step over people to get
where there's a lot of benefits to playing the politics at companies, and this is not specifically like at my last company, but just in general. I'm sure you've realized that. And one thing that I learned from the people that I admire is that that's not the only way to win.
Mm-hmm. No, it really isn't. I mean, some people at companies are gatekeepers and don't want you to surpass them or are afraid. This general of that is everybody can eat sometimes, you know. You don't have to step on somebody else's neck to get to where you want to go to. So that is really good advice.
I actually have one more that like
go for
really,
it.
Really great advice. It was from Reggie at Jordan, Reggie Saunders, just like absolute legend in this industry. And I remember he was telling me, like, don't ever let the company you work for become more important than you in your identity and who you are and your character, right? And so I just remember this like advice he said, where he was just like, one time someone introduced him as Reggie from Jordan, and he corrected them kindly and said, "Hey, no, I'm Reggie Saunders. Like, that's my job, and it's not who I am. It doesn't define me." And I thought that was super profound, especially when you love the brand you work for, right? You want to represent it to the fullest, but it's important to not to let those type of things define you, and understand that outside of work, you still are your own person. You have your own identity, and you got to keep that top of mind too.
Here's a different example I know you've come across too, and any listener of this podcast has also. Nobody likes being described as Marco-Henry the sneakerhead to people as an acquaintance. Like, nah, bro, I actually have like a whole personality. I just also like shoes. Yeah. It's just like you're the sneaker guy, and it's like, well, I'm more than just the sneaker guy. But it's easy just to draw that kind of conclusion.
It's easy to get pigeonholed into like, oh, you're the sneaker dude or you're the creative dude, because it sounds like a compliment, but oftentimes it's also like holding you back and saying like, I do other things too. I write, I record a podcast, I strategize, right? Like, I grow businesses. Like, when you say that about somebody, especially in the work setting, you're kind of like, oh, that's just what they do. They just grew up liking sneakers, like, which is a skill in itself, doing all the research and education, but it should never define you.
You're involuntarily pigeonholing somebody. You're trying to be nice.
For sure.
So you kind of touched on this next question here, but a big one I have had on my mind is, what's one sneaker trend you would like to see come back?
Come back. I talk about this all the time, but I remember when I say we because I think we're around the same age, like maybe
31, 32.
Yeah, late 2000s, like 2000. Let's just say 2010. Really great time for sneakers. I remember when you would see somebody rocking a shoe that was like just a classic or an OG. It didn't have to be like super limited or hyped or rare. It just had to be like a good shoe, and you would respect that. They would feel fresh wearing it, right? Like, I just remember seeing somebody with like a pair of Great Fives back then, or infrared 6s, or even back then, this is before the one trend, someone rocking some Royals, and just like, that's dope, because you kind of had that connection where that they had to work to get that shoe because they were still hard to get. And now I feel like everything's just like tied to money and how rare it is. So there'll be a shoe that'll drop that's just absolutely fire, like, no pun intended, the Fire Red 4 from that drop last year. I just think that shoe's beautiful. It's the shape, it's a classic colorway, but like there's people in the new generations of sneakerheads that won't recognize that shoe as being great because it doesn't sell for $1,000. So I would love for people to just go back to liking what means a lot to them and what they think is dope, and less about how much is this shoe worth. Like, that's a trend that I hope comes back. I know a lot of people still do that, and I respect those people, but I get that it's hard too, right? With all the pressure of keeping up with the latest big collab or whatever.
I feel like it's sad because you're more likely to have, let's say, because I've been wearing these a lot, the what the fives.
Yeah.
Not a lot of resale value. I love Jordan 5s. I'll never have most of the shoes that make up that shoe.
Yeah.
I love wearing it. But there's somebody on this earth who's clowning his friend because, like, oh, that shoe's not rare. That shoe's not hot. It's like, who gives a shit? Like, this, I like wearing this shoe. Like, I turn one way, it looks one way. I turn another way, it's yellow. Like, this, what makes me happy?
Yeah, that's the trend I want to come back, is people just wearing what they genuinely think it's hot, not what the internet tells them is hot. And it's okay to be influenced, right? And to think that what's on trend is cool too. But I think sneakers are a lot more fun when you just like get geeked out about the things that you like versus what is selling for a lot of money.
You're a big eBay buyer, like old eBay buyer. So like shoes are such a great space because you can have the latest and greatest Travis Scott shoe, or you could go 15 years back and pick up some heat and just look at it from a different perspective. Like, I've always wanted these are cool to me. Not fuck Travis Scott. I have a pair of his shoes. I love wearing them. But like, you can go a different direction than just what's the newest.
Yeah, and there's so much cool stuff to uncover. Even if you just got into shoes a year ago, like there's all these different eras of sneakers. You can go back and find things that were just super cool, and maybe you didn't know about them. I love finding shoes that I didn't know existed, or I forgot they existed, and being like, "Yo, that shoe was dope. Like, I think I want that."
Mm-hmm. They age better. You see it 10 years later, and it's like, okay, at the time that wasn't very cool, but now I'm feeling it. Very nice.
Yeah, I love finding just like the used section at a lot of marketplaces is full of good stuff, right? Like if you just like are down to hunt a little bit, that's like the part of sneakers that's still a lot of fun to me.
So I'm just gonna give my quick 2 cents. I think it'd be cool if we stopped caring so much about being brand specific. Like if you like that Reebok t-shirt, wear a Reebok t-shirt with some Jordans. Like nobody's paying you. Like I would like to see people as be more. It doesn't all have to be a walking billboard for your favorite brand. You can mix it up. Some people think that's sacrilegious, but I think the socks should match the shoes. But outside of the socks, you can wear a different pair of shorts. No one should give you any hard time for a Puma shorts with Nikes. Yeah. In my opinion,
at the end of the day, I won't mix friends per outfit, just as a personal rule.
See, everybody's different.
At the end of the day, like if you're liking what you like and what makes you feel dope and makes you feel confident, then nobody else should have some criticism about that, you know.
Mm-hmm. As long as your inspiration is global warming, you can wear anything you want. So what's one trend that's out here now that you'd like to see go away? That isn't the flip side of the first one.
I think I hate to say it, man, but when I was growing up, fake shoes were fake shoes. And I think the bootleg trend has had a significant part in sneaker culture. When you go back to obviously Babes or other shoes throughout history that were sending a really like thought-provoking message and really kind of had a bigger picture idea to them. But I think now just like slapping your logo on a shoe from the Alibaba marketplace and claiming it as your own design, I just don't think that's like, I don't think that's very creative. And again, if that's how you're making money, then and you built a following. We talked about this in the Sole Savy newsletter last week because of the Nike trademark news or the patent news. And I'm just saying, like, hey, if you built a following off of bootlegs, more power to you. But if you really think you're, super creative and you're a designer, and this is your perfect opportunity to prove it, right? You can only if every single one of your popular designs are based off of a shoe that is 36, 37 years old and already establishes the best shoe in the world, I think that you could try a little harder. So I think that trend is just like, again, man, maybe it's just like the era that we came up in, but fakes were never cool.
No, those
are legit fakes. Like they're 100% fake. There's nothing real about them.
They just cost you way more and you're cognizant of it. Like there's just...
And I get it. It's definitely like a result of the market being so hot right now and it being impossible to get shoes. But I just think like if you have to resort to wearing fakes, then like you're missing the whole point of why shoes are cool, right? Like some of them are not supposed to be easy to get. And again, it sucks. But like if that goes back to the hunt, the thrill, like getting a shoe, it feels so much better when you acquire that shoe you wanted versus settling for a fake.
It takes, like I said, it doesn't take very much skill to just put a different logo where the Jordan swoosh, where the Nike swoosh should go on a Jordan 1. But I think where it does start becoming creative and where these people shouldn't be looped into the same thing, like JBF Customs and the Shoe Surgeon, that's a real skill to create. And they're cobbling pretty much a brand new, be it a Jordan or whatever brand it might be. But like that's real skill. So like I don't consider those to be in the same lane as a fake shoe.
I think reconstructing or customizing is its own lane. It's not like my thing, but I definitely don't consider them the same either. I think fakes are fakes, man. Like when it comes to like you're ordering a fake shoe, all the materials are fake, So that's one that I'd like to see it go away. The next one, I'm gonna be nice here, but I think the aging shoes trend has gone a little too far. Like we're aging shoes that are already aged. And I'm just like, man, like, because to me, it's like the rush to be an OG, right? Like the original aging is wearing your shoes, and I get it. Like if you're a collector, it's hard to beat a shoe up because you have so many options. But I don't know. For me, I'm just like, all right, we get it. Because I remember when I used to try to de-yellow my shoe, and I get it. Like I'm not gonna be the old man yelling at clouds, but at the same time, I'm like, what's going on? I think we're taking it a little too far, a little too literally,
I think you remember in middle school, there was a point growing up where like people were fake skating their shoes, like lifting up their shoes more to make it look like, I'm in these streets, I'm skateboarding all day long, and you're really just like cutting up your laces and like rubbing sandpaper.
I remember that people would rub their shoes against the grip tape. The biggest giveaway back then was when you cut your laces with like scissors, because it was a badge of honor to have your laces bust because you were just like, you were skating them. But you could tell when somebody cut it, the cut was too clean. Like there was no frizzle to it. So you're right. To me, it's like that. And again, like I've seen some really dope aged shoes. I mean, obviously Off-White and Union and Nigel Sylvester and Alma Maniere, those all come with an aged tint to them. But I think like we don't need to age every single shoe that comes out. And I think that it's rewarded on social media, right? Like a lot of the blogs is just like, you're gonna repost what is going to get people going, but as a result we're here now, and I'm like, I don't know if we need to age those shoes. They're already kind of cooked.
All of those shoes you just mentioned are aged for storytelling purposes, not for aesthetic. Well, it is an aesthetic choice, but like ultimately there's a reason behind it, not because it's cool. So 2 last questions here. This one, I had to think long and hard about my shoe so far of 2021, but what's your favorite release so far of 2021?
Man, I really hate to say it because everyone's saying it, but I finally got my hands on the Alma Maniere 3, and it's a great shoe, man. Like I'm a big fan of James, and I've had the opportunity to meet him on a couple occasions and do a couple stories on him for past Jordan releases. And so I already knew I was gonna love something that he came up with. But that shoe is just like beautifully crafted. It looks great on feet. I love a shoe that you could just keep wearing, like without even thinking about it. And that shoe's good. So that's up there for me. I've been breaking out into other brands lately, which I haven't done in a few years. So I've been pretty excited about some other shoes. I really like the Pata New Balances that they did earlier this year. I thought that was a great shoe. I haven't found the right opportunity to wear it yet, but now that summer's here, I think I'm gonna be able to bust those out. I like the Bricks and Woods New Balance that just came out a couple of weeks ago. I was able to check out that pop-up release they did here in LA. I just love seeing new energy, right? Like we can keep creating new trends and new hits, right? It doesn't always have to be the same ones. You know me, I'm a Jordan 1 guy, so I'm not going to sit here and tell people to move on from the iconic silhouettes because I never will. But I love when I see new stuff pop up too. So I would say like those 3 have like come to mind first as like shoes that I've just been really excited about this year.
Okay, killer. So I mean, you said that you've now started experimenting with other brands. Who do you think's poised to have like the best second half of 2021? Be it a brand or a collaborator or a line. What do you think's up for 2021 second half?
Man, I have to start off by saying like Jordan is just I'm a homer but that like I'm a Jordan guy through and through. It's just like they're almost like just contenders every year, right? Like you can't ever that's the longest dynasty in the entire industry. Like you can never count them out. I know that they have some heat coming out. They're gonna own the industry again, but that doesn't mean that like there's not more people kind of like fighting for that top spot. So I think Jordan's gonna do some exciting stuff. Of course, I just have to say that because I don't want people to think that I'm counting them out. They're just so big that you just have to mention them.
Yeah,
right? And they do have some exciting stuff that I've heard that's going to be coming out this year. That's going to bring new energy to new silhouettes. But I think New Balance is like on a insane run right now. Like the last couple of years, they're just choosing the right collaborators. They're bringing energy to the right shoes. They're introducing new silhouettes, which is hard to do, right? When's the last time we've seen new silhouettes take off the same way that some of theirs have, right? It's like from any brand, it's very difficult to do. So I think that's going to be exciting. I'm not a big Reebok guy, but I'm rooting for Kirby and that new direction that they're going in with their whole, him being the creative director there. Like, I think it's exciting to know that there's a brand out there that's kind of been off the radar for a while, and that they're putting a lot of real genuine resources into trying to make them a contender again. So I'm excited to see that. I can't remember the last time that I was into sneakers where this many brands were winning at once, and I think that's dope. So it's really to everybody, right? Like, we haven't even got a peek at what Fear God or Jerry Lorenzo Adidas is going to look like. I'm sure that's going to come out of nowhere and surprise us. So I guess the answer to that is that I hate to be a cop-out answer, but I really don't remember a time in sneaker culture where this many brands could have the shoe of the year by the time it's all said and done, or be in the top 5,
Yeah, like the that Be Like Water, or like, that New Balance coming out, that is turning some heads. There's gonna be a couple shoes that turn heads. That's my shoe of the year, hasn't come out yet. I think it's gonna be that Lightning 4, man. Like,
that's gonna be good.
wanted that shoe for so long.
Yeah,
that's gonna be it once that drops. That's the jam.
Yeah, I always give. I'm always going to give extra points to a shoe of the year that's a new silhouette, though. So it's so easy for a retro to be shoe of the year, and most of the time they're deserved. Like the Union one was by far the shoe of the year. But think about the other years where like an obscure or a new shoe won. There were always new silhouettes. The Sakai Vapor or the Sakai Waffle was a new silhouette. It was a remix, but it was still new. The acronym Presto, which is also considered to be the shoe of the year. So I'm excited to see like what update to a silhouette or new silhouette can come in, because those will always get like I don't know if it's recency bias, like, or the opposite of recency bias, but when the new silhouette pops up, I think that brings a whole new energy to a great retro collab or colorway, which are always going to be at the top anyways.
Because we have to keep it moving. You don't want shoes to be stagnant. Okay, it's 2021. We've made all the shoes. Like, no, there's still more stuff to be done.
If that Mars Yards 2.5 comes out,
that's
going to be a shoe that like, it's just exciting, and I don't even know how to describe it. It's just fun. I love the rollout. I love him telling you beat the shoe up. Like, I think that's cool.
Tom is his own energy for sure.
Yeah.
So Marco-Henry, man, tell me what's up with anything you want to plug. What's up with Sole Savy? We're gonna get out of here.
Yeah, man. If you love sneakers and you love the sneaker community, which I know your whole audience does, that's really. I'm talking to the right
some
people.
Overlap here.
Yeah, check out Sole Savy, man. It's Sole Savy with 1V on all social accounts, and consider a membership. What we're trying to do here is put, again, passion in people before profits when it comes to the sneaker industry. Our number one goal is to help real sneakerheads and people that just love shoes get the shoes that they want and have fun again, right? It shouldn't have to be this difficult. There's a lot of work to do. We're going to need brands to step it up as well, and retailers. But when they started this company, it was with that goal. How do we just help people enjoy shoes again? And we have some big plans this year, and if that's something that appeals to you, check it out or hit me up. I'm happy to talk about it. We have a community right now, thousands of people across North America that are just 100% dedicated to moving sneaker culture forward, helping each other out, helping people cop kicks. We spend a lot of time and resources giving you the tools that you need to buy shoes. It's so hard. We hear about the bots, we hear about the different apps that don't work. We can't guarantee it, but I think that we're giving people the best shot to buy shoes manually for retail. So
you truly do.
Check it out, man, for sure.
You get a great shot there, and we have some members of our Discord who are, again, cross members with Sole Savy, and
awesome.
It's great stuff. Where can they find you online?
Yeah, so it's at Sole Savy first, and then if you want to check me out, it's at Marco-Henry, MarcoHenry on Instagram and Twitter. I'm a little bit more active on Twitter, but I'm always down to talk kicks. That's how Robbie and I first connected. That's how Nick and I first connected, and I'm always down to connect with some more people too.
You are the Twitter god, but we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for dropping some knowledge. Make sure you're following Sneaker History, and everybody enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good one.
Appreciate it.
Hey everyone, this is Nick again. Before you take off, do us a solid and head over to Apple Podcasts to leave us a review. Give us a rating on Spotify and Amazon Music, and make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel because we have even more video content coming soon. Speaking of new content, we have an amazing community of sneaker enthusiasts that hang out in our Sneaker History Discord on a daily basis. While sneakers is a connection point that brought us all together, we've all discovered countless shared passions that we have in common with each other. We recently launched a couple of new podcasts directly from our community. One of them is a Formula One podcast. If you're an F1 fan like me, the Exhaust Notes podcast is your weekly fix of Formula One fun. It's hosted by myself, Rohit Malhotra, and Todd Yates. New episodes drop every Tuesday. I've been wearing fitted hats for years and collecting my favorite teams since I was a little leaguer. It has been awesome to see so many new fans getting into fitteds in recent years. Crown and Stitch is our new talk show about fitted hats with Dexter, Keith, and myself, where we talk about fitted hats, snapbacks, throw in some obscure hats because we all kind of like some funky stuff once in a while, don't we? Copping, collecting, and so much more. New episodes drop every Wednesday. Hit the links in the show notes for this episode to give our new shows a listen, and be on the lookout for more new podcasts dropping soon. Last but not least, tell someone you like their kicks today. You never know how far a simple compliment can take you, and we all know how good it feels to have someone show their appreciation. Thank you all for the support, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.